a bit. I trained in this t-shirt.
I can't smell anything.
That's good.
Right, say something. Try it.
Annoyingly, the fails got more likes than the real.
Don't just show the highlight reel.
Show the blooper reel.
Show the blooper reel.
Or don't use the then.
I think I get them. Like, I think if I'm going to do that, I might as well do 270 squat. If I'm going to do 250, I might as well do 270.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be better to do 270.
The more weight you lift, the better you score. So you might as well lift more weight.
I mean, you can ask for as much weight as you want as well, which is amazing. I can't believe they even allow that. You just tell them, I want.
It's great, isn't it? Like, there's no limitation. They don't say you can't have that much weight.
No, that's too much weight. No, you can say, well, I want that much weight, and then you win. So. I think actually there is a limit, in all seriousness, to how much you can step up by. I can't remember what, but it's
as long as you open high enough.
Yeah.
Then you're fine.
If you couldn't do 22.5, 322.5, 522.5.
So you can't ask for any weight. You have to ask for some
amount of
some weights, but some weights you can't have.
Mm.
So the best thing to do is to ask when you walk into a competition how much weight they have available to them, and then open with that.
I do that in restaurants. How much food do you have?
And open with that.
I'll have all of it.
That's your first attempt. Restaurants are a lot like powerlifting meets, aren't they? Like, you get 3 attempts, don't you, at eating?
And you get judged on how much depth.
Yeah. The waiters red light you, depending on how much you lift.
And then they watch you pee into a jar at the end. It's exactly like a restaurant.
I think actually, congratulations is in order, because Yusef is officially drug-free. Passed the drugs test.
Yeah. So I was watched by an old man with a clipboard, getting a close-up view of me weeing into a jar.
Why did you have a clipboard?
I just fancied one at the time. Thought it would enhance my performance. And that was quite awkward. And the reason they do that is to check for certain people. If they want to bypass the drugs test, they'll have a pouch of urine in their rectum and a prosthetic penis with someone else's urine that's not druggy. So
Druggy urine.
Druggy urine.
No one wants druggy urine, do they?
Well, that's it. Except you have to do your 3 deadlift attempts with a pouch of urine in your rectum, which I think would, at least for me, that would impact my performance.
Do they? Do they not? Is there no time? Surely you could say, "Oh, you can't say I need to go to the toilet, can you?" Before a urine test, you can't say, "Sorry, I'll be there in a minute. I just need to go for a wee," because it'd be like, "Well, no, you need to come here for a wee."
Yeah.
So you can't just squeeze the bag up your bum. You have to have it in your bum on your 3rd deadlift attempt.
Yeah,
right.
And they watch you the whole time, and you can't be seen to be reaching in your bum and pulling things out of it either. So, because then they'll be like, "Well, what did you just take out of your bum? I saw that."
It was a pouch of non-druggy urine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I suppose you wouldn't take it out of your bum; you'd keep it in.
Mm.
But okay, fine. Then you finish your 3rd deadlift, and you're not allowed to be seen putting anything in your bum.
Right. But surely all of that is pointless because the man is watching your penis, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, if he can't distinguish, given that that's his designated task for the day, if he can't distinguish between a fake and a real penis, then you need to hire somebody else.
He's failed as yeah.
What a job.
What a job. So what are we talking about?
We could talk about drugs and sports. Hello and welcome to the PropaneFitness.
Oh no, he's gone. What he meant to say was welcome to the PropaneFitness Podcast, episode 30.
The reason we're doing this in person, face to face. We get a load of complaints about our sound quality because we're usually using Skype or FaceTime or something like that with 2 microphones that we bought thinking that they were for podcasting when actually they're for gaming. So It usually ends up with me being really loud and
Yusef being really quiet. What we should have done is used a potato. That probably would have been better quality than the ones that we've got.
Just plug a potato into the MacBook and hope for the best.
Ram the USB in.
So that's why, for some reason, staring at Yusuf's face while I was doing that introduction was enough to make me laugh.
I have that effect on people sometimes.
Laughing at, not with. So we're going to discuss Maria Sharapova initially, and then use that as a segue into why we have decided to take the drug-free route in powerlifting and just fitness and strength sports in general. So for those of you who don't know, and it's been all over the mainstream media, so I imagine you will have heard, but Maria Sharapova was caught taking a drug to help an underlying medical condition, I believe. I'll be upfront and honest in that I don't know the specific details of the allegation, the drug, the reason, her underlying conditions, etc. But as far as I understand, she was taking something to treat angina that was prescribed by a doctor, and that only very recently, I believe January, was banned by WADA, and previously, is it WADA?
Yeah.
Yeah, that covers all sports, everything.
I think so. Yeah, it's because you may have seen our post that the new head is Mr. Dick Pound, and we're all very grateful for his pounding.
So she's been found to have been taking a drug that was banned, and while it, I believe, was for legit reasons, it does have potential performance enhancing benefits. So I guess it's difficult when there's another example of this that's happened recently that I'm aware of, and that's Jesse Norris. I think he's had a very short term ban, but he had his title stripped away from him in the USAPL Nationals in powerlifting after an incredible performance, because he'd taken a pre-workout that had a stimulant in, that is a pre-workout that can be bought in supplement shops or off the internet. Like it's nothing dark and shady. So in both of these cases, well, I suppose Maria was taking it for a medical reason. Jesse just wanted a better pump. But in both of these cases, it seems like they were taking something that they were unaware of being an issue, and have subsequently been banned or received a delay in the next time they can compete, etc. So we were just going to talk a little bit about that, whether we think that's fair, and then just chat about drugs, I guess.
With Jesse Norris, I think it's an absolute gutter. It's kind of a trip at the final hurdle situation to be such a great lifter and to be tested for like a pre-workout. Like if you're going to be, it's a bit like the idea of, people say if you're going to rob a bank, if you're going to steal something, don't steal some sweets. Like go and rob a bank. This is assuming that I'm not advising rob a bank, but this is assuming that the punishment is the same.
Yeah.
You might as well go big or go home. And if you're going to get tested positive for a pissy little pre-workout that's probably not going to impact your performance too much. And also, if assuming Jesse is otherwise drug-free, then he doesn't really need it. Probably would have done pretty well without that. Equally, with Maria, there's a lot of performance, and I think there's very few performance-enhancing drugs that are purely used as performance enhancers and have no medical use. You do need a little pink form to submit to WADA if you're using something medically that is also considered a performance enhancer, like insulin or something. But really, the WADA are the ones who decide what is a legal performance enhancer and what isn't. But it's ultimately an arbitrary line. And if any of you have read anything by David Nutt, who is I think a professor of psychopharmacology, and he used to be the advisor to the Ministry of Health, but he had to step down because basically he wrote up a paper that graded recreational drugs and reclassified them according to amount of physical, social, and maybe psychological harm.
I remember this.
Yeah. So which ended up with a reclassification away from the current existing kind of class A, B, C thing, which is, from what I can see, seems pretty arbitrary, into a separate thing where alcohol would have been quite a high damage, high hazard drug, and things like LSD and psilocybin were on the lowest end of it, and ecstasy, MDMA and things. And obviously that rustled a few jimmies, and so they weren't happy with that. But the point I'm making is that there is an arbitrary line between what is considered an acceptable drug and what's not acceptable. Caffeine does improve your performance, but for some reason WADA have decided that recently, I think it used to be banned in certain doses.
Really?
I think so. So they've decided that caffeine's okay and other stimulants aren't. So it's always a grey area, and ultimately when you're following WADA's principles, you're just saying, okay, well, these drugs with this chalk line drawn around them are not okay, and these ones are okay.
Did that paper account for the total consumption of those drugs?
I think it was per head or per capita. So
Right.
I know you've got, like, it's not total number of deaths, but it would be.
I'm just thinking if
percentage of
everyone went out on a Friday night and took some LSD,
there would be more.
We'd probably be seeing a very different set of circumstances. I
Maybe
imagine.
from a like statistical significance point of view, in that like the sample of people that drink alcohol is greater, so we know with more certainty that it doesn't precipitate psychosis, for example. But we maybe don't know with some of these other drugs.
Yeah, because I think so. Like most people know somebody who drinks alcohol on a regular basis, whereas I think the proportion of the population that take LSD regularly pretty small. So I think if everyone, just how there are some people who drink alcohol, and become violent and emotional, I assume there's also loads of people who don't, who just have a quiet time in a bar with some friends.
Well,
so
yeah,
you'd assume the same spectrum with everything, wouldn't you? But it's off topic, isn't it?
Well, I think what got him fired and eventually, or what got him to step down, was saying you're more likely to die falling off a horse than from taking ecstasy, which
right. Even though that's presumably not his opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is just data, but because it doesn't fit the agenda, it's a bit of a shame.
But I think all of these things considered, like whether WADA or not are classing drugs correctly, or whether they put the chalk line in the right place or not, I think especially for Maria Sharapova, who, as I understand it, was one of the most highly paid sports women in the world, to not know what is banned and what is not banned. I think I heard a statement from her which was that she received an email from WADA that had the list, the updated list, and she didn't open it. Now,
that's a bit silly.
Yeah, so Jesse Norris, like, he's competing in the IPF. There's not a financial consequence of him failing a drugs test, as far as I'm aware. You know, it's pride, really, I think. Obviously,
it's a big part of his life, and I think if you're taking on a sport with that level of seriousness, then it's really your prerogative, and it's down to you to keep on top of these things. And just as if any of you work in any kind of industry that is regulated, if there's a change in regulation, you need to stay on top of that to make sure that you're not going to get caught with your proverbial pants down.
So I think that's what it comes down to, really. Like, if there are, it's like turning up to a competition, squatting high, and then claiming that you didn't realise. You know, I mean, that's still your fault.
I've actually seen that. This was a few years ago.
This isn't me. You're talking about.
This one. At least you got one squat in. This was a guy in like a Scottish meet, and all of his squats were like, it wasn't even like a borderline high. It was American 12-ply Federation high, feet practically in the splits, and then acting surprised at the judges when he squatted about 6 inches, and all 3 of his attempts were red lighted, and he was out of the competition, which makes you think, like, if you're willing to go through all of the prep required to get to the competition, and then even travel to Glasgow, and you didn't know how deep you have to squat, that's a bit of an oversight.
Yeah, it is. But so I think, in a way, it's kind of, it seems unfair on the initial impression that Maria got picked up for the drug she was taking, assuming all of the backstory is correct and it was for medical reasons. But I think what is unforgivable really is somebody of her level not knowing the WADA list like the back of her hand, or at least somebody in her support team knowing that she shouldn't be taking that drug.
Her career hinges on that.
You know, I think Jesse, who's a guy who's either training himself, he maybe has like one coach, He's turning up to USAPL Nationals on his own, maybe with some family, squatting and then going, oh, damn, didn't realise, sorry. I think he's got a 6-month ban, and that will be it.
Okay.
I think they probably have given him a lighter ban than had it been testosterone that they'd found.
That's good, and in fairness to him as well, the wider list of drugs that are banned is quite a long list, and also it's, if you're given the full chemical names of these, the empirical formula of a drug, and you're thinking, well, I don't know whether I'm having that or not. If someone said, okay, like, make sure you're not taking any beta tocopherol, you'd be like, oh, okay, I don't think I am, and then you find out actually it's vitamin E that you've been eating in your bread or something. So that's always something to consider. And then there's also what I think is pretty heinous, is that some of these products don't advertise that they have these things in them, or they are pro-drugs for the compounds that are regulated. So you might have something which in its form in the supplement is not considered to be a drug, but once it's metabolized it becomes that, and then you test positive in your urine without realizing. And I think Rob Riches claimed that...
I think it was the same product that they were both taking. Right.
Well,
I think
that's a bit of a problem. So something which may not claim on the label that it has it, and then so it may be that if you were to test any one of us, I'm not talking me and Johnny, I'm saying the general population, you may find some people that have no idea that they are having anything just because they bought a supplement that isn't completely honest or isn't completely accurate with their quality control, and find that they test positive for something. So,
or companies that their goal is to, so the supplement in Jesse Norris's case, I believe, was a pre-workout, and their intention when they're producing that product is to create a product that you drink and think, wow, yeah, I definitely feel that. And obviously things are banned for a very good reason. Like, the reason why Tribulus, I believe, isn't banned is because the impact is so minimal that WADA don't care, and testosterone, I imagine, would feel extremely different if you started a cycle of testosterone and be able to handle a lot more volume, etc. So the more effective pre-workouts will contain things that are fringing on banned. And I know Jack 3D is the famous one that had, was it 1,3-dimethylamine?
Yeah. Amylamine, I think.
Something like that. Obviously, I think most people have tried Jack 3D when it was available in the shops. Very, very powerful, stimulating pre-workout, and for that reason, WADA picked it up pretty quickly and banned it. I believe this pre-workout contains something very similar to that. But, yeah, so their intention is not necessarily backhanded. They're just trying to make a product that people enjoy using and don't necessarily consider professional athletes who might get picked up for a drugs test.
It's opened up a market of supplement companies that sell a range of supplements that they can guarantee are not going to get you tested positive.
I think charge a premium.
I think MyProtein do something like that, and it's like whey, a tub of whey that is like, you won't fail a drug test if you have this whey. Now that concerns me a little bit, because it makes you think, like, what's the implication there? If I just drink normal whey, am I at risk of testing positive?
I think the other thing that, again, comparing Jesse and Maria is probably quite a good comparison, in the sense that I think if I was taking products that had a label on them and a barcode and I bought them from Tesco, I probably wouldn't be checking the label rigorously to check that I wasn't breaking any WADA rules. Whereas if I have like a medically marked container that is in a white tub with my name written on it, I'd probably be thinking, hold on, maybe I should double check that this kind of thing isn't banned. I think I've even checked that ibuprofen and paracetamol and things like that aren't, because ibuprofen arguably improves your, like, I think people use it. Has it been shown to have a short-term or a long-term anabolic effect? I'm not sure.
Maybe
in large doses, but I know of people who take ibuprofen prior to training because it makes them feel more supple and more able to hit depth and that kind of thing. Whether or not that's placebo, I don't know. But I think as soon as you're taking something that's a pill or a tablet or feels like you shouldn't be, then... Well,
we had a chat with Andy Bolton at at a powerlifting meet in York, and he was saying that he would inject Voltarol between sets because he was feeling like he was in so much pain.
Can we say that?
I don't know. I think Voltarol is legal anyway. So,
is it? Okay.
And yeah, so the other, I mean, it depends how neurotic and how careful you want to be. If you're the kind of person that when you upgrade iTunes, you read through every word of the user agreements just to make sure that they're not pulling a fast one on you, then maybe you are checking the ingredients of every label on everything. But incidentally, I just saw a video. I'm going to link it in the description of this podcast because it was brilliant. It was a Scottish comedian called Limmy, who has a little sketch about the user agreement of
on iTunes.
Something like that.
I think it's deliberately baffling, isn't it? It's like rabbit in the headlights. Like, oh my goodness, I'll just agree.
Well, someone calculated the amount of time it would take if you were to sit and read through every license agreement and things that you're presented with, and it's something like several lifetimes.
Really?
So it's like 72 years of continuous reading, and it's like
just to check that nothing's going to go wrong
at the average reading speed. So yeah, exactly. They're clearly not designed to be read by humans. So
I think what would be nice, and I'm saying this may exist. What would be nice is if there was a list. WADA produced a list of commonly produced, readily available products that contained the banned ingredients. And then as soon as obviously if anything comes in a needle or, as I say, an unmarked packet, probably not, probably steer clear of that. But I think if anything, if you're buying something from your local supplement shop and that's going to get you drugs tested, while yes, obviously you have a duty of care to check these things, I think it does seem a little bit unfair in some ways.
I think that would be very useful, and there's really two sides of this, in that there is the accidentally having something that is in a standard or everyday product, and then there is the deliberate, flagrant use of a drug.
Yeah.
And that's something that we also wanted to discuss, in that why we compete in drug-tested federations. Jonny's... saying we'll discuss that in part 2 of this.
So such elegant transition.
So smooth. Well, that's something to look forward to anyway.
It is. But I guess to round up, I think probably the best. Let's say if you're somebody who doesn't compete and never has any intention of competing, this sort of thing. If you want to take drugs, that's your decision. If you want to use these supplements that are banned, that's also your decision.
YOLO.
Exactly. No one is ever going to pick you up on it. You just carry the risk yourself. As soon as you start wanting to compete in anything that carries a drug testing set of criteria, it does benefit you to be aware of these things. And I think the safest approach is just eating food. You're unlikely... I don't think I've ever heard of a situation where somebody, by eating a diet of just whole single ingredient foods, has been banned.
So unfortunately, this isn't. You're probably fine, but in Egypt, which is where some of my family were from, they found recently that the standard, there's a really common type of white cheese that they sell on the streets and everything. And that contains formaldehyde or formalin, which is used to embalm dead bodies, and it's pretty carcinogenic. So,
so it's not performance enhancing.
No, but it's pretty terrible. And it's definitely not a food, and which is a shame. And I guess but luckily in the Western world, where most of our listeners are from, the food is pretty tightly regulated, and you're quite safe from too much dodgy stuff being put in your regular food. So that would be one of the safer bets. And then the other bet is the other thing is to make sure you read all the ingredients of all the supplements that you take, all the user agreements of all the software that you update.
Because you can get banned for software use as well, I understand. If you subscribe to iTunes and you haven't agreed, then WADA can ban you.
Well, part of the iTunes agreement is you must not use this software for the manufacture of nuclear, biological or chemical weapons.
Really?
Yeah, so just make sure you don't do that when
I hope they don't find out what we've been using it for then.
Oh, God. We're on blacklists now.
But yeah, I think... so one consideration would be limit the number of supplements you take to either none, so just rely on food, or the absolute bare minimum. Anything that is that has proprietary blends or is called like Death Serum that is a pre-workout, for example.
Hemo Rage, unbelievable. You're calling something hemorrhage.
Well, all those things that have skulls.
The Curse. That's
the Curse, one. Yeah. Like they certainly drum up impressions of things that are maybe not entirely above board, whereas a tub of whey, like what are they going to have slipped in there realistically? It's
Purple Wrath, another one. Grenade.
I think all of
quite destructive names for pre-workouts.
Yeah, I think Purple Wrath and Grenade are actually okay.
Right.
But
just as an aside as well, like Jonny and I don't really use supplements in general. Like apart from, I think we may have discussed this on one of the previous episodes, that mainly we just use creatine, vitamin D, and whey, and multivitamin, and that's pretty much it.
Fish oil as well for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like ones that are evidence based, have a good body of evidence behind them, and the dosages are as well. There's a range of evidence suggesting what an effective dose might be. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's the general advice is reduce your supplements and you reduce your risk down to a minimum. Okay, that's everything for episode 30, which is technically part 1 of a 2-part series where we're talking about drugs.
So, next episode, 30.5 or 31? You decide.
Alright guys, speak soon.